and welcome to Literary Hype. I am Stephanie, your Literary Hype Woman, and today's author conversation is another return guest from last summer, and I'm very excited to have this author back. She's one of the first ones that I talked to about making a return visit because she has a brand new book out, The Duchess Effect. This is the sequel to American Royalty, which both have absolutely stunning covers. Just fantastic. So without any further ado, here is my conversation with Tracey Livesay. Well, welcome back to Literary Hype. It's so exciting to have you back for a second time.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
The last time we were talking about American Royalty, and now we've got the Duchess Effect, which both of these have just absolutely stunning covers. It's ridiculous how pretty these covers are. So you don't normally do books that follow the same couple. So kind of introduce us to what's going on with Danny and Jameson right now.
Yeah, I have never done a book that followed a couple from a previous book, but I knew when I was halfway through writing the first draft of American Royalty that they were bigger than one book. There was just no way with how fantastical their worlds were, how they didn't even really meet until like chapter 7 or 8, I think. There's just no way I could tell a complete story the way I like to in one book. It just wasn't going to happen. And so the moment I sensed that, I reached out to my editor and I said, this is where I am. This is what's going on. And that had not been the original plan. The original plan was to do what I always do, which is follow a new couple. I would have introduced them in American Royalty and followed them into their own book. But when I knew that I wanted to continue Danny and Jameson's story, I reached out to my editor and she was like, if that is what you're feeling, write it that way. I'll read it and we'll see what happens. I don't write extra words. So when she said that, I was like, you think, you think that you've put an option in there. What you've told me is I am writing a second book. So that's fine. And so I wrote American Royalty the way I did, knowing that their journey was going to continue in the second book. And so when Duchess Effect starts, it's like 3 weeks after the end of American Royalty. So at the end of American Royalty, Danny is going back to the States. Jameson wanted to go with her, but he didn't have his passport because he had done the mad dash to the airport to stop her from leaving. So he needs to get his passport. He needs to, let people know he is leaving, tie up some loose ends, and then he was going to follow her to the States for a visit. And so that is sort of where the Duchess Effect picks up. They have been in the States for a couple of weeks, and they've been sort of holed up together, just enjoying each other's company, being a newly in love couple. And the first chapter starts with sort of their first public event since Jameson pretty much declared to the world that he loves her and, they're a couple.
Of course, there are shenanigans that must happen to have these books. We see the return of Samantha Banks and her causing problems.
Yes, we do.
I really enjoyed that you called her so messy, like in that one. Like yes. So why can't Samantha Banks just let Danny be happy?
She can't, because Danny gave her what she wanted, right? Which was attention. The interesting thing about, and I thought Samantha was gone until I started trying to think about, the obstacles for Danny and Jameson in this book. And it occurred to me that once Samantha got her claws in the royal family, why would she let go? If what she wants is to be, is attention and to be famous, Duchess is great, and that got her to a certain point, but Julian was stupid enough to, to get involved with her, and so now she has bigger fish to fry, and and so she does, yeah.
But Samantha Banks is not the only person causing drama for Danny and Jameson. The Queen has also become a royal pain in the butt for them. You want to talk a little bit about the situation that she's kind of wiggling her way into with them?
If you remember, at the end of American Royalty, the Queen was not happy with Danny and Jameson. She essentially, forbade Jameson from getting involved with Danny when she realized that Danny was not going to like toe the line. And Jameson chose to be with Danny and to make that public declaration of love for her. And at the beginning of the Duchess effect, the Queen still is not happy with them. They haven't communicated at all at the beginning of the book, and Jameson kind of naively believes he can go back to sort of his life before American Royalty, even that he can just go back and teach and being, and he knows that being with Danny is going to involve some sort of life in the spotlight, but he thinks once her deal goes through for her business that she'll be more focused on that, and that maybe they can just sort of live their lives sort of a little bit in the spotlight, but not much, is what he naively believes. However, because of Samantha Banks getting involved with Julian, it turns into a major scandal. And, the Queen and the royal family is always looking to make sure that their reputation is intact for all of the reasons that she stated in the first book. And so when, Julian, who is the Prince of Wales and the heir to the throne, is pretty much embroiled in this scandal, and Danny and Jameson's coupling has become so popular and it has garnered like worldwide attention and press, she sees an opportunity to use them to sort of buttress the reputation of the royal family and hope that in time people will forget about Julian and Samantha Banks. Also because Julian's wife is pregnant, and so there's a new baby, and so she's hoping she can kind of use a little bit of Danny and Jameson until the new baby comes, and then they can, everyone loves a royal baby, so everything would be fine then. But of course, again, Samantha Banks says, no, not if I have anything to say about it. And so then she really needs Danny and Jameson to sort of step in and be the face and ambassadors essentially of the royal family.
There is a scene toward the beginning where Danny takes Jameson shopping, which is very entertaining on multiple levels. Hint, hint, wink, wink, for all y'all who have not read this yet. You're welcome. But also there's a really great conversation in there where she's like, so she's taking him to try to get something more swaggy, but trying to make sure it's still authentic for him. Talk a little bit about like that balance of like trying something new without going into cultural appropriation, and like how it was important for Danny in this situation.
They both are from such different worlds. And the idea is if they're going to be together long term, they have to be able to share each other's worlds, to be a part of each other's worlds. And so ideally what that would mean is that Danny would be a part of Jameson's life, with whatever royal things he has to do with his family. And likewise, he would be a part of her world, whether it's, the business stuff with Meliskin, or if she's still performing, going to performances, like supporting Nyla on the red carpet, those types of things. They would have to be a part of each other's world. And I think what Danny wanted to do is say, you've spent some time here, we've spent some time here, but I haven't shown you sort of all of what I do, of who I'm around. And you I love you and you're hot and I love the way you look and I love the way you dress. But we're going to be in my world sometimes. And so the same way when I'm in your world, I might have to dress a certain way. Like I might have to wear a ball gown or I have to do whatever. Like if you come with me to certain things, Dockers and a sweater vest, while I think they look so great on you, may not always, blend in. So let's just try to find something that's a little more, like she said, swaggy. I'm not trying to change you. I love you just the way you are, but also we can grow and be a part of each other's lives and culture. And that's all I'm asking of you. Because he did take it, he was a little, I think, offended in the beginning. Like, why are you trying to change me? This is who I am. And she's like, I'm not trying to change you. I'm just trying to show you a bit of my culture the same way you've shown me a bit of yours.
You mentioned that Danny's got her Meliskin deal that she's working on. How much research did you have to do on the business merger legality side of all of that?
I do a lot of research on that stuff because it's really important to me to get it right as best as I can. So I know that a lot of people have their feelings about romance jobs, about jobs and careers and romance novels, and they'll say, I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of these things. It doesn't matter to me. Or they'll say something was done for romance reasons. And I make it like a personal mission to make sure that it's very clear why people are doing things in my books. And so I did a lot of research on the type of businesses, on who would be involved. It was just important to me that it all makes sense, that the decisions, that Danny is motivated by certain business decisions and those things make sense. I don't want people to just sort of skip over that or to think I'm just throwing something in so that things happen. No, like she moves from this decision to this decision based on the information that she has before her that is as realistic as I can make it with what I have access to. Like if I had access to Rihanna and we could talk about, Fenty and her entire conglomerate, maybe, I could have, if I got anything wrong, I could have corrected it. It could have been more, specific. I don't know. But considering I cannot call Rihanna, this is the best that I could do.
Only we could just call Rihanna and ask her questions. Be like, hey,
just,
I need some help on this book.
Hey, Riri, I don't know what's going on here. Can you help me?
Oh, dream world. Dream
Yes.
world. You've also done a lot of research on the royal side of things. And I noticed Sarah McLean is also in your acknowledgments again this time. Did she step in and help a little bit more this time?
Not as much, because she did such a great time, just such a great job the last time, that I didn't need to go after her for those specific things. So I'm sure she was grateful not to have one of those calls with me like last time.
Since American Royalty came out, we've gotten so much more information on Harry and Meghan with their documentary, with Harry's book. What did you learn from reading those things that you wish you would have known while writing this book?
Absolutely everything. I could have been saved so much time if I'd had that documentary in that book. Just some of the small details about his protection, his royal protection officers. I had so many questions when I was writing the first book about where they were and how close they were. They are included a lot more in the second book than the first book. But if I'd had that information, it would have been so helpful. I said, the one thing that's going to happen when I'm talking about the Duchess effect is people are going to ask me, did I get the information from the documentary and the book? And the answer is no, because believe it or not, I turned in not the final draft, because the final draft of the Duchess effect the day the documentary came out, the first 3 episodes, because I was telling myself I cannot watch it until I turn this in. So everything that happens in the book was all set out and done before I even got to watch their documentary, and obviously before I had a chance to read Spare. What watching the documentary several times and reading Spare did for me is sort of let me know that I made the right decision and what I decided for Danny and Jameson. Because back when I was writing American Royalty and knew that I was going to be writing a second book, the ending for them was different than where they ended up. It was only as I was writing the Duchess effect and staying true to who Danny was, that I realized that it couldn't end that way. That it couldn't end with her essentially being a princess in that system, because of all the things that happened to her along the way. And what watching the documentary did was show me, yeah, that's about right. That's about right. And if anything, I don't think that the pushback that Danny gets in the Duchess effect goes far enough, or even sort of like the newspaper headlines, which are the headings for the chapters. I don't think they go far enough. For the most part, I do believe it ended the way it should have ended, at least where we are right now.
Okay, so we're gonna go there now. Because when we talked last time, you had mentioned that you didn't know if 2 books would be enough. So we've got a red one, we've got a blue one. Might we be getting a white book for Danny and Jameson?
Let me
You knew this
say,
was coming. Let's be real. You knew this was coming.
I do. I know it's coming. So in the way that I knew that there was going to be a second book when American Royalty released, I don't know if there's going to be a third book, because that is not up to me. That's one of those publisher things in terms of like how the book sells, how it does. Did I leave space for a third book? Yes. Do I have the storyline for what a third book could be? Yes. In fact, what I will share is that in the draft that I submitted to my editor, you know how the first book had the Samantha Banks chapter, and you saw what happened. The last chapter for the Duchess effect gave a hint to what a third book would have been. But again, because that third book is not guaranteed the way the second book is, they told me I should take that out and put something else in. So I do have a story and an idea for a third book. They just really want to see how this book does. So, and then I still, because this series sort of came in the middle of a series I was already writing, I still have to do the final 2 books of that series too. So we will have to see. We will have to see.
Come back to other books here in a minute, because I still have so much other ground about Duchess effect to cover.
Okay.
One of those things being like, there are the obvious comparisons to Harry and Meghan, and we already knew that Harry left the royal family before these books started coming out. Were you intentional about not making their Danny and Jameson's story too similar to Harry and Meghan, or was it kind of like, well, this is how it would be? Like, how did your mentality work with trying to discern between reality and your fiction?
when I was writing the story, I was clear about following what Danny and Jameson, as the characters that I created, what they would do, which is why I said, like, I was surprised in quotes that it ended the way it did, because when I initially planned this book, and I guess I can say it now, I had planned for, I wanted to give, I say Megan, but in a way, like I wanted sort of Black women to get that fairy tale ending, like that we thought we were going to get, that we never really seemed to get. Um, I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to write that story. And Danny, in my mind, was going to end up as a member of the royal family, but as Danny. Like, she's not going to dim her light or be anyone but who she is. It was just as I was writing that story, and I'm writing Danny being true to her and the character that I created, and all of the things she has to sort of to fight against, it was like she couldn't, and I think when people sort of read that, like, state dinner scene, the idea of what they would be using her for, um she's not a person that could stand up and be used in that way. And it would be something that would happen over and over again, because the characters have shown themselves to see the family as a business and to do what's necessary to ensure that this line and this business, continues forever. And um Danny would have been used and sort of tried it out, in those situations, and she just, that's just, she wouldn't do that. She couldn't tolerate that. And knowing that, it just I was like, I can't force her into that. No matter what I had wanted to do, that's not that's not how she is as the character, and that wouldn't be true to sort of the person that I'd created. Um, and so that's sort of why it goes the way it goes, more so than anything. And Jameson loves her, and he's not, I think it's clear that he would choose her, over anything else. So I mean, in fact, whereas in American Royalty, sort of Jameson had to come to a decision and learn his lesson. I would say this book is about, Danny. Sort of, she didn't have that same, sort of arc in the first book. She was who she was at the beginning, the same person at the end. And then this book is about challenging her, because I truly believe both of them had to grow and learn, so that at the end you do believe that they can be together forever, that they can withstand everything that's going to come their way.
And you touched on the family being a company. The royal family in real life is often referred to as the firm. A lot of books do continue to use the firm, but you use the company. What was that decision like? Why did you decide to change it to the company instead of going with the firm like others do?
I thought when I was writing American Royalty that there is a lot of information that is out there about the royal family that I think is put out there for reasons that might not necessarily be true. And I just thought it was really, I thought it was funny that people go around using the term the firm, and like they know, and like it gives them some little sort of, insider cachet because they know the term. And I just thought, wouldn't it be funny if, um, people go around using that term, but actually, like, inside they use something completely different. And when people use the other term, that's how they know that they really don't know anything that's going on. And so that's why I made the decision to sort of to tweak that a little bit, um, because it's one of those things that I learned in my research, um, that I think if we've been paying attention, I think we've all learned the past few years that what we have been sold is not at all what's going on behind the scenes. And I know some people will still not believe that, and they'll still believe the pretty version of what's going on. Um, but I truly believe that what Harry and Meghan, have done is sort of like pull the curtains back and showing us, yeah, no, this is not what you all think it is. And it makes it sort of difficult to even look at it in that pretty shiny way anymore.
So in the first book, you have a lot of chapter headings with Dany's lyrics. In the second one, it's a lot of like news headlines or news commentary or tweets about them. What was that decision process like for you in making that switch?
When I knew that this book was going to be about Dany being in the royal family, and sort of we were seeing her inserted into that world, my first thought was the headlines, because you know even though the documentary hadn't come out when I was writing this, the Oprah interview had happened, and so we all are aware of those British, tabloid headlines, and how merciless they are and how horrid they are. And then also the media coverage on both sides. And so I thought it would be interesting um, to not only do the tabloid headlines, but to show the difference between what the Americans would report and what the British media would report. And the other thing I did that I didn't know I was going to do was do some of sort of like the morning shows, because I hadn't really paid attention to those, but on Twitter they pop up quite a bit when people will put in like little snippets from their morning shows. And to see, I can't imagine being them. The attention, the hate online, it's overwhelming for me, and I'm not even involved. I'm just like scrolling, reading, and I feel overwhelmed and anxious and nervous and attacked. And so I can't imagine that stuff being about me. But I wanted to show how their lives are just under constant scrutiny. It doesn't, 24/7, someone has, something to say. And I wanted the chapter headings to kind of reflect that. The other thing I thought was interesting is, I know there's a lot of discussion or description of Dany as a rapper, and she is. But what I wanted to sort of be clear about is that she got into rapping because she thought it would get her to her final goal of sort of being in charge of her life and calling the shots. Not that she doesn't enjoy it, but it wasn't like that was her calling. She used it as a stepping stone to get to a different place. And what that place was Meliskin, because she thought the business would give her that control that she needed. And so for Dany and for me in writing this book, not including rap lyrics wasn't about saying like Dany is no longer a rapper. It's like, yes, this is what she is and she enjoys doing it. But if the business stuff goes through, that is where Dany's focus was going to be, because that again takes her closer to her goal. Her goal was not about being the best rapper in the world. It wasn't even about being like the richest rapper in the world. It was about being able to call the shots in her life. That is what Dany wanted to do.
And throughout the book, we get to see a lot of Dany's self-talk, and it is pretty harsh. But as women, I feel like we understand where that's coming from, especially driven women. What was it like for you writing such harsh self-talk for someone who's so driven and like trying to be so strong, but also like showing that vulnerability for her?
It felt real to me. Um, Danny feels like a part of me, a part of me that expects a certain outcome, that expects a certain level from myself, and when I don't achieve it or when it doesn't happen, you tend to blame yourself more than anything else. And so it was, again, like I said, I knew who Danny was. I knew the character that I created, and I wanted her to be as real and authentic as possible. And it was important for me because, like I said, in American Royalty, she didn't really have that character arc that I normally would have given her. And again, that's because I knew that it was going to be more than one book. And so knowing that, I said the arc that she needs, because she can't go through life thinking she can control everything, that she can call the shots on everything, that she can be the superwoman. She's going to have to, to learn to let other people who love her in. I knew that that was going to be book two, that that was going to be the art that she was going to take, and it was going to be difficult. It's hard when you have learned the lesson that the only person that you can depend on is yourself. It's hard to let that go, even when you have someone who is as wonderful as Jameson is standing in front of you. And that was a lot of this book, right? Like, he's constantly saying, like, I got you, I love you, I would do anything for you, and he means it 100%. But that's not the life that Danny has lived. That's not what experience has taught her. And so she had to learn to let him in. She had to learn to let him, to be vulnerable with him. And, that's sort of what we do as we write these books. We have these scenes where we show, them opening up. We show Jameson, meaning what he says. I wanted them to have conversations. So the scene when they go for the walk and they have the conversation about money, and you get a little bit more of her background, and he realizes that there are things that he's taken for granted that she couldn't. It's not as simple as just saying, you're right, you're wonderful, I know you love me, I'm going to let you in. It takes a bit more than that, and she had to go through that journey. And again, it's important for me that readers believe at the end of the book that no matter what comes up, that those two will stand the test of time, and that they've learned the lessons, and they'll be there for each other.
So we still have hope for the third book. Do we still have hope for a Nyla and Rhys story? And also there were hints of Yolanda and Liam in there as well. Why are you toying with my emotions like this?
Because yes, the plan would have been that book two would have been Nyla and Rhys's book, and book three, if there would have been a Yolanda and Liam book. I still want to write those stories. I don't know. It is not up to me. It is not up to me. I'm traditionally published, and these books are traditionally published. And so these characters at this point kind of belong to the publisher. But those are stories that I would like to write. And I wanted to give people a progression of Rhys and Nyla, and sort of give them an idea of what they would have to go through. And so in my head, as I was teasing that, it was with the notion that their story would come. So we'll see.
Better be listening, Avon. Give it to me. Give it to me now. We need it, man. Okay. It's like the whole time I'm like, Professor Thor.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you've got two other books that you've got to write. Can you say anything about those or where they are in progress?
Yeah, I can. So before American Royalty came into being, I was in the middle of my Girls Trip series, which is a series about four friends who met in college and they go away on vacation together every year. And sort of each book is anchored by a vacation and then the story of one of the friends falling in love. And so American Royalty came because, again, I was in the middle of that series. I was getting ready to write the third book, and I am a planner. I'm very type A, very analytical. And I was like, I need to know what's going to happen. I know I have two more books to write, but I need to know what's going to happen after that. And so I'd given them the idea of American Royalty as sort of like what I was going to do next. But my editor was like, no, I want that now. And that's how American Royalty and then the Duchess Effect came to be. But book three, there were two friends in the Girls Trip series who's still waiting, to have their story. And so I am in the middle of drafting book three. And I have not started book four, obviously, but I sort of know what book four is. It's a change from what it was going to be when I first imagined the book. The second book in the series is called Like Lovers Do, and there was a character in that book that people responded to in a way that I did not expect them to respond to. And so because of that, that character is now going to be featured in book four. So I know where those books are, and I have been so grateful for the readers of that series who were with me before American Royalty, who's like, I love, don't get me wrong, I love Danny and Jameson, but are we getting, book 3 or 4? And those books are coming. So, and and then maybe a third book. I really would like to do the third book, but we'll see.
I mean, we would like for a third, fourth, and fifth book. Avon.
I could keep going. I could keep going. Someone called it like the Duchess cinematic universe or something. Like I could, yes. There could be 5 books. I could.
Yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I'm really excited for people to read this book. Like I said, I have not done this before. It was the hardest book I've written because I have not done it before. And because I had this established couple and characters trying to figure out what the arc was going to be and how the plot was going to play into that was difficult. But I really do love this book. As sexy as people thought American Royalty is, I think this is sexier. I do give you more because they're a couple in love and they're gorgeous and they want to, do all the things and have all the fun. But I also have things to say, and I think that I say some things in this book. I have opinions, and they do come out in this book. But, I really do think that if people loved American Royalty and loved Danny and Jameson, that they will love to read their continued story.
And the last question, the best question, what books are you hyped about?
Okay, so it has been a crazy busy time for me. So I have not read as much as I want to or normally would. But I'm not going to do that. Okay, so I finished reading Adriana Herrera's An Island Princess Starts a Scandal. I think that's what it's called. It is fabulous. It's so good. They are so messy. If you watch Netflix's The Ultimatum, Queer Love, like if you watch that, this book is for you. If you watched it and were entertained, you will love this book. Even if you didn't, you will love this book. And my Duchess Effect comes out in July, and I am doing an event at East City Bookshop with Nikki Payne. And so I've read Pride and Protest, and loved. I am such a Pride and Prejudice girl. I like to watch all the iterations. And I just thought that that was so well done and so creative. And I'm so excited to, I know she's in conversation with me, but I'm going to be in conversation with her because I have some questions. We're going to talk about some things. And so I'm really excited about that. Um, oh God, I think that's about, I mean, Sarah's new book comes out in August, I believe. So I'm excited about that. Um, yeah, and trying to get in as much reading as I want to get in this next like 6 weeks is going to be impossible. Oh, another book that I'm excited, I just started listening to, I'm a little late to this, is Legendborn by Tracy Dion. Oh, I'm so late, but I'm like, oh, I'm invested. I got book 2 waiting. I'm excited to read that. And then in the I thought I didn't have any books, but all these books. In the nonfiction, because I do like to read a lot of nonfiction, and I love pop culture and stuff like that. So Maureen Ryan's new book, Burn It Down, I cannot wait to read that. The snippets that have been released talking about the Lost writer room and Sleepy Hollow, I'm like, I need to read this book immediately. So those are the books that I'm excited about. Those are the books that I am trying to read, that I have read. Yes. I was like, what books am I going to talk about? And then
Once you get going with books, it's real hard to stop.
it is. I'm always like, I was like, what am I going to talk about? And then it just sort of, yeah, came out. But that's what I'm excited about. Legendborn, I cannot believe I'd seen that cover so many times, but I'm not usually a YA fantasy reader. So, and I don't even know why I picked it up, but I got it on Audible and started listening, and I was like, man, what about, and then so I'm all in on that one. That's been really good.
Oh, well, thank you so much for doing this. It's so wonderful to have you back and to have more
Thank
Danny and
you.
Jameson in our lives.
Thank you for asking me. I really do appreciate it. I really do. Your support and everything has been so wonderful.
Thanks again to Tracey for taking time to talk with me about her new book, The Duchess Effect, as well as a little bit about her previous book, American Royalty. It is so fun to see her taking on a new challenge of writing about the same couple in multiple books. And she's just a really fun person to talk to, and so you should definitely check out her social media. That link is down below, as well as a place to buy her books in a couple different ways. And while you're down that side of the video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and click that little bell next to subscribe so you get notifications whenever I post a new video, because there is a lot of really fun stuff on the way here from Literary Hype, and I'm so excited to share it with you. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.